I'm curious to know about you and Andrew's thoughts on bad trips, on mushrooms or other psychedelics. Could you describe how you would deal with that and what a bad trip would feel like? So I'd like to let Andrew go first on this one.
So in my understanding and things that I've read, I haven't personally had a bad trip. And I don't even like using the word bad because they're all just individual perceptions of how things are. But I think when people describe having bad trips, it's very much a resistance versus acceptance type situation, or, resisting versus surrendering to what you're feeling and accepting what you're feeling, or like going down this path of not wanting to feel what you feel. So in my situation, I've, only tripped on higher doses of mushrooms a handful of times, but the first few times, especially the first and second time I did a higher dose, there was a point I remember on the come up where it started hitting me pretty strongly. And there was a split second where I was like, oh boy, this is kind of a lot right now. And then I immediately told myself, this is okay. It's okay. I'm supposed to be feeling this. It's okay. Surrender, accept. And those sorts of things just kept going through my head. So I think in a situation where I may have continued on that, like, whoa, I don't like this. I changed my mind. I don't want to go down this path. Like, that can lead to a situation where you are resistant to it and potentially what someone would label as a bad trip. But I think the thing that, through the act of tripping or taking mushrooms or anything like that, you are able to see things more clearly, but also the act in itself is sort of not like a meditation, but a practice in acceptance, because the experience of it in itself, like, you feel differently. You are existing in a slightly altered state of being than you typically are. It's different. It's uncertain. It's unknown. So in itself, it's a practice in this acceptance of uncertainty. So I don't know, good, bad, all just perceptions, right? But that is my take and my experience, where I think there were points where if I had resisted as opposed to surrendered or accepted, it would have potentially gone down a route that could have been considered, a bad trip. But that's my take.
That's good. It is, in fact, I used to refer to it as a symbolic leap of faith. Right? Like, you're surrendering control. You're surrendering it up to this substance that you're taking, and you're just waiting to see what's going to happen. And so your mind is always wanting to do the same thing that it's always doing. I've always found that on psychedelics or hallucinogenics, regardless of what they might be, what happens is the state of mind that we're always in, or rather the mentality that we're always experiencing, all of a sudden just becomes more pronounced. It's all of a sudden like our sensitivity to our own mind becomes increased. So anything that comes through our mind is so raw and in our face that we don't have our identity, and we don't have the task list of tomorrow, and we don't have our ambitions and our worries about what people think of us to block us from having those thoughts, to have that experience, right? So I know in my experience, when I was much, much younger, I've been in a number of situations where the situation went bad. And had I not been able to relax myself through it, it would have been a very different experience for me. Experiences where I've been, say, at somebody else's house, and then all of a sudden something in a different part of the house went bad, and suddenly there were police there, and there was a fight that broke out, and all of this. And meanwhile, I was in the basement, just blissing out on life, having a great conversation about the philosophy of God and being. And then suddenly we come upstairs and there's cops outside and there's all kinds of stuff happening. And we're like, what is happening here? And of course, at that point, you can panic. And one of our friends did. And so we just kind of walked him through the same lessons that we walk ourselves through all the time, every day, which is, you don't know why they're here. You don't know that they're here for you. You don't know what's happening. So don't assume anything, right? And so all of a sudden, after about 5-10 minutes of doing that with him and just walking, removing ourselves from the narrative and all our assumptions of what it might be, he was doing just fine. And so it's very much the same thing that we do in our waking life, except that it's so much more important that we take it as a priority on hallucinogenics or in psychedelics or in altered states of consciousness because of that sensitivity, because of that particular, well, just how much of a hair trigger your mind can be in that state. Because if you decide, I don't like this, you're going to get about 1,000 reasons that you don't like this. And they're all going to come at once. Where if you go, I don't know what's happening, you're going to come up with 1,000 reasons to not care. Right. And it's that simple. And it's because your brain is working so much faster in those states of mind. It's not resorting to the same structure it's used to. It's relying on all of your senses, not just the ones that you're focusing on. There's so much happening. So often a bad trip is the trip that we don't allow to happen on its own. It's kind of the point. It's the same thing we do in life. We don't allow life to happen on its own. We're constantly micromanaging our role within it. We're constantly micromanaging and analyzing everything that we do from moment to moment to moment to moment. And so we don't allow the here and now to be what it is. We're always superimposing distortion over top of it. So just as we do that in our waking life, we do that on hallucinogenics, except on hallucinogenics, it just happens that much faster. So it becomes the practice, like Andrew said, of letting go. It becomes a day-to-day practice. If you practice it in your waking life, then on hallucinogenics, you won't have any problems at all. But if you practice it on a psychedelic experience and not in your waking life, then you're going to assume it's the psychedelics that are giving you those insights, when it's not. It was the choice that you were making in the moment, regardless of the conscious environment.
Yeah, what I've found too with, just recently getting into, mushroom psychedelic realm is that it very much like I fully remember how I felt on them when I was peeled back like that. And it very much has meshed into my sober existence. Like I wake up and walking around, like how I felt microdosing, 2 months ago, I feel like that, not microdosing now. And even I found, which has been kind of interesting, I took, what was it, like 1.5 grams last, like a week and a half ago. And I was fully hallucinating. And I don't think I did that like 2 months ago. Like it's become stronger in the sense that like I get there quicker, because I remember you said that you take 0.5 gram now and you get to a place that you used to get on like 7 or 8 grams. Is that, do you think, because you begin incorporating it more into your own life? So there's already, like an example I just sort of thought of was like, because when you take mushrooms, it kind of peels you back more. So like there's all of these layers, say with someone who is very sure of things, and then, mushrooms peel those back, and they may peel a few back, and then, a higher dose may peel more back. But then if you live an existence where there's fewer layers to begin with, then it peels you back to the point that like there's just one peeling. So like for you, 0.5 gram, that's all you need, and all of a sudden you're fully peeled back. Whereas, someone else, it may change. So like for me, taking 1.5 grams could be the equivalent of taking like 2.5 grams 2 months ago. But I found that to be very interesting, because I always tell people like, oh yeah, you start hallucinating around, between 2 and 3 grams, totally depends on people. And I took 1.5 grams and I'm like, wow, I'm very much like tripping right now. I was not really expecting this, but all right, cool.
Saving money. Right. But no, it really is that. It's you described it really well. It's like there are so many layers. There's that gap between who we are in sobriety and then who we are in the psychedelic experience, right? And if it is a very wide gap, if the rest of the time you're always thinking you are something, and then all of a sudden you end up in this place where you're not thinking about anything, it takes you a while to just get used to that state of being. And so you kind of ease yourself into it, which is often why we resist on a trip. It's all of a sudden it becomes a little bit too much to let go of. We're like, oh, I don't like how that feels. Right? And we resist. And that's when things kind of go sideways, which is why we answered somebody else on our live stream last week on Patreon that if you're going to look into doing this as an experience, start very small. Start very small. Allow yourself to kind of peel the layers back gradually. Allow yourself to get used to the idea that you don't always have to be thinking about yourself. So that way, when you get to that place, it's not such a contrast between one and the other. It's not so jarring, because that's very much what it is. But, and I want to make this point again, this is the same thing is true for every single moment. We're always avoiding the intensity of being present, right? Doesn't matter on psychedelics or not, because there's nothing that psychedelics can do to your brain that your brain can't do to itself. Right. And so in each and every moment, we have the same opportunity to just let go and allow ourselves to experience, what it is to be high, which is, again, just synonymous with an extreme state of relaxation. That's all that is. Right. But yeah, I find it really interesting that it's always the same choice. It's just how quickly our mind reacts to that choice, how quickly our mind is willing to go in the direction that we want it to go. And that's always based on what we do day to day, moment to moment. It's based on our priorities. So as you are more and more abandoning your perspective that you are Andrew, there's just less Andrew to let go of, right? So all of a sudden there you're like, I'm back to being who I am. Wow, I really got caught up in that fiction for a bit, right? Whereas before it was like, oh my God, it's all a fiction, and it's this massive, astonishing insight. And then after a while, you're just like, yeah, I remember that. I'm good to go. And it's not this big jarring experience because you've been there. And this is often why meditation can be useful to people if they have a very busy lifestyle, is that it provides you that North Star. It reminds you of what it is you can experience. It reminds you there's other options rather than just the hectic pace that you're on. And that's the whole point of those experiences, is to give yourself some context, right? If you're always running, if you're always thinking you are an identity, the idea that you can live free of that doesn't make any sense until you've experienced it to some degree, which is why I always recommend people go for walks, or people question their narratives or question who they think they are, because at least then they'll have a moment of, oh, that's not real. And then that leads them to want to experience that more. But without the experience, it's all conceptual, which is often questions that I get from people, and we'll get to that next. I've asked my question. It's your turn.